everyone. We have a very special class today. As I'm sure you all know, our great country of Iceland has been experiencing some pretty tough economic times. Today we will have guest speakers to share their experiences with you. Our first speaker will be Bonnie, a banking executive, who will share a brief introduction about the crisis.
Hello, kids. Well, as you might know, Iceland started out primarily as a fishing community. In 2001, the government gave more freedom to banks in a process called deregulation, which allowed banks to borrow money from foreign countries. When they weren't able to pay back all the money that they borrowed, Iceland was forced to increase interest rates.
What's an interest rate?
It is the percentage of a sum of money that is charged if someone borrows.
So like when I borrow 1 krona from my brother to buy candy, and then have to pay him 1.25 the next day.
Yes, exactly. Good example. When the interest rates increased, it became a lot cheaper to buy goods from abroad, but not from home. But then when Iceland went into a severe economic recession, the Icelandic currency became less valuable. A recession is when the economy is declining. Also, there was a lot of debt that was given to the households. As a result, there was inflation, or an increase in prices, while the value of money is decreasing. In the end, this increased unemployment, or people without jobs, and decreased output. People didn't want to buy goods from home, so the demand or consumers' willingness to buy goods decreased.
Okay, kids, everyone give a round of applause to Bonnie for sharing her time with us today. She sure is a banking expert. Next up, we have David Odson.
Hello, children. Many people blame me for the financial crisis that happened here because I was the head of the Icelandic Central Bank. Before that, as the Prime Minister, I helped Iceland's economy grow massively by reducing the government's regulation of the economy.
My mom says that you're a dirty politician. She says you have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, I warned the bank that they borrowed too much money, but they didn't listen to me. And the banks borrowed more than 10 times Iceland's GDP, or the value of the total output in the economy. So there was nothing we could do to bail out any of the banks.
What happened to the interest rates?
Well, we decided to keep interest rates high, so like Bonnie said, people in Iceland could buy a lot of goods from other countries. But eventually, the currency stopped being so valuable, and when the banks collapsed, there was little we could do. Sorry kids, I have to go now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Odson. Next, kids, we have Geir Hard.
Well, hi, kids. I'm here to talk to you all a little bit about my involvement in the economic struggles we've been having. As you may know, I was the Prime Minister of this great country from June of 2006 to February of 2009.
I heard people don't like you.
Well, you might have heard pretty accurately. When we started getting into trouble, people got a little bit upset with me, because I was in charge at the time. The thing people need to realize, kids, is that we were part of a much bigger collapse. You see, our struggles got really serious when banks like Lehman Brothers in America collapsed, and that triggered a bit of an avalanche in our economy. When you look at it that way, Iceland is really just a perfect microcosm of the global economic collapse.
So people just don't like you for no reason?
That's not totally true. I was charged with counts of financial neglect when I left office, and that may have been a real issue. I was enjoying the profits and prosperous atmosphere in the nation, like so many others. But while we were enjoying our short-run boom, we weren't looking at the medium and long run. When we were going through our fiscal expansions and monetary contractions, that means we were spending more money on the economy and paying people more for the money they stored with us. We weren't really thinking about the ability to pay them back in the long run. This was a mistake we made, and it's similar to mistakes that people made in the United States and Europe. So while people got angry at me for not being careful enough, they were sort of right, but I wasn't the only one. People all across the world were doing the same thing and making the same kind of mistakes.
How did all of this affect normal people, though?
Well, kids, that's something our next speakers better comment on. So if we can just quickly thank Mr. Hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Doug, a local fisherman who stopped fishing to work in our banking system, then struggled when the crisis came around.
Hi kids, my name's Doug.
Hi, Doug.
Kids, I was a fisherman, working off the coast just a few kilometers from here, before we had this big banking bubble. Then, when people started making tons of money in the banks, my uncle talked me into getting a job at one of them. So I sold my fishing boat and started learning to be a banker.
So I guess you can say you went from fish to finance.
I guess you could, young lady. Anyways, when I started working at the bank, I was making good money. I took out a loan and bought a nice home for me and my wife and puppies to live in. Everything was going great.
What happened?
Well, the bubble burst. When all the economic hoopla you kids were just learning about happened, my money became worthless. I lost my job and the bank I was working at went out of business. I couldn't finish paying off my loans because all of my money from the bank was gone, and I couldn't sell my house because it had become worthless too. Worst of all, I didn't even have my fishing boat.
Poor guy. In the end, you were left without fish nor finance.
Whoa, wait. What are you doing now?
Well, I'm here talking to you, trying to make ends meet. Hopefully over time, and by the time you kids are looking for jobs, our economy will have started to recover. Till then, we just have to stick together and tough it out.
Thanks for your time, Doug. So as you guys see, the decrease in money supply increased the interest rates, which enabled the private banks to pay back their debts. But even after the debts were paid, bankers became greedy and kept the interest rates high to further promote investment in Iceland. For a time, foreign currency rushed in, increasing demand and leading to an economic boom. However, as countries overseas, such as America, experienced a contraction and decreased demand, foreign investors quickly rushed into our banks to withdraw their money. However, we couldn't pay everyone back at once, which led to our top 3 banks to go to default, further hurting our economy. The lesson learned is that although bubbles seem great in the short run, in the long run, when these actions cannot be maintained and the bubble eventually bursts, the effects are disastrous.
Boy, oh boy, we learned our lesson, Professor Lindbergh.
Good job, class. Time for recess.
Yay!